A very good morning to all students. Today's session will be on two sets of antibiotics, that is macrolide antibiotics and aminoglycoside antibiotics. We shall be taking one by one. We shall be covering this topic under the following headings. By the end of this topic, you should be able to list the different examples from each group, that is let's different examples from macrolide group as well as from the aminoglycoside group. You should be able to describe the mechanism of action of each of the groups, the antimicrobial spectrum of each group, their pharmacokinetic consideration, adverse drug reactions, and their uses. Okay, and in the end we shall be also discussing a little bit about some specific drugs under each of these categories. So first we shall start with macrolide antibiotics. So these are a very popular group of antibiotics and their name is derived because of their chemical structure, which consists of a macrocyclic lactone ring attached to sugars. That is why they are called as macrolides. The next important thing that will be asked for your examination is to list the classification of the macrolide group of antibiotics. So here it is. It can be classified into drugs which are obtained from natural source and the drugs which are semi-synthetic. So the drug which is obtained from natural source under the macrolide group is erythromycin. It is obtained from Streptomyces erythraeus, and this drug is the prototype drug of this class. So I hope you already know what a prototype drug is. So we shall be discussing mainly erythromycin, and then we'll be comparing the other drugs with this erythromycin, how it is different from erythromycin. That is the way we are going to discuss this class. We'll be studying this group in terms of erythromycin because it is the prototype drug of this class, and then we shall be discussing the other drugs, comparing it with erythromycin. So the other part of the classification includes the semi-synthetic or the newer macrolides, and these are clarithromycin, azithromycin, roxithromycin, and spiramycin. So in our discussion today, the principal macrolides which we are going to concentrate upon are erythromycin because it is a prototype drug, and from the semi-synthetic group we will be mainly looking into clarithromycin and azithromycin for our discussion. Okay, so now we'll see the mechanism of action. So mechanism of action will be common for all the members of this group. Okay, and how does it act? It is bacteriostatic at low concentration but becomes bactericidal at high concentration. So remember, it is mainly bacteriostatic at low concentration, but it becomes bactericidal at high concentration. The mechanism of action of this group is that it inhibits the bacterial protein synthesis. So the first thing that you write in the mechanism of action is that it inhibits the bacterial protein synthesis. So I'm not going into the elaborate steps of bacterial protein synthesis in this class because I hope you have already studied that in the previous classes. Okay, so I'll be only concentrating on which step of the bacterial protein synthesis these macrolides are inhibiting. So they combine with the 50S ribosomal subunits and interfere with the translocation step of bacterial protein synthesis. They interfere with the translocation step of bacterial protein synthesis. So in your answers, you have to write that they combine with 50S ribosomal subunits and interfere with the translocation step of bacterial protein synthesis. This is a figure which I have taken from Tripathi. It is there in Tripathi and just shows the steps of bacterial protein synthesis, which includes processes like the formation of an initiation complex. Then there is a process called chain elongation, and the third one is translocation. So these macrolides are interfering with the translocation step of the protein synthesis. Now let us look at the spectrum of this macrolides. So we'll be looking at the spectrum of erythromycin because I told you erythromycin is the prototype drug. So from here onwards, we'll be discussing the spectrum, the pharmacokinetics, then the ADR, and the uses of erythromycin. So whenever you have to write a short note of erythromycin, you will say that it is obtained from a natural source. It is having the mechanism of action which I described in the previous slide, and then you will write the antimicrobial spectrum. So you can see it has got a narrow spectrum, means it is only active against the gram positive bacteria mainly, and a few gram negative bacteria, but main action is against the gram positive, just like the penicillin that you have studied earlier. This also is mainly active against the gram positive, but it can act upon a few of the gram negative bacteria also. So you can see here the spectrum, you can see a lot of bacteria. Okay, so in this we'll divide the spectrum into two parts. A spectrum which is similar to that of penicillin G. So what I'm going to list now is the same bacteria which you have studied in the under the penicillin G. Streptococcus pyogenes, Streptococcus pneumonia, Clostridium tetani, Clostridium diphtheria, Listeria, Neisseria gonorrhea, and even a spirochete, that is causing syphilis, that is Treponema pallidum, Leptospira. All these is the same spectrum which you studied in penicillin G. This is there in the erythromycin also. And other than that, some additional spectrum also is there in case of erythromycin. And this is very important. You have to remember Mycoplasma, Bacillus pertussis, Haemophilus ducrei, Campylobacter, Legionella, Chlamydia trachomatis. These 6 are the ones that you should not forget. Okay, so whenever you are writing the spectrum, you write the spectrum which is similar to penicillin G. So the ones that you studied in penicillin G, same thing you will repeat it here. And you have to add on some additional spectrum in which the first 6 which I mentioned are important, and the others you can actually ignore to some extent. But these, it is important. The first 6 that I told you is important. Now we'll look at the pharmacokinetics of erythromycin. So erythromycin is absorbed from the upper small intestine. One problem with it is that it is acid labile. Okay, so you have to, whenever you're giving it, it gets destroyed in the gastric acid. So there are dosage forms which are having acid stable esters, because these will get better absorbed. Because it is an acid labile drug, acid stable esters of erythromycin are now formed to ensure better absorption. Now, food retards the absorption. So you have to always keep a time gap between the food and the drug whenever it is prescribed in a patient, because food retards its absorption. It has got a wide distribution, but it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. So any CNS infection, cannot be given because it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. It is only very little metabolized in liver and almost excreted in bile in the active form. So not much of metabolism is there. You can see the T half, which is about 1.5 to 2 hours, not very long T half. It's a shorter T half of 1.5 to 2 hours. So it has to be given almost 4 times a day in a dose of 250 to 500 mg. It's available as tablets, syrup, suspensions, drops, and even as ointments, which can be applied in the eye and wounds and all. So it's available in the oral forms and as also for the topical application in the form of ointments. Now let us see the adverse drug reactions of erythromycin. So you can see it has got principally gastrointestinal adverse reactions like epigastric pain, nausea, anorexia, diarrhea. Occasionally, with very high doses, you can get reversible hearing impairment. So when you stop the drug, the hearing impairment also will be corrected. It is a reversible hearing impairment. It can rarely cause hypersensitivity reaction. So if you remember, penicillin was associated with a large number of hypersensitivity reaction, but compared to that, this drug will not cause that much hypersensitivity reaction. Only very rare cases of hypersensitivity reaction can occur with erythromycin. Then regarding the drug interaction, erythromycin is a microsomal enzyme inhibitor. In your general pharmacology classes, you have learned that erythromycin is a microsomal enzyme inhibitor. It can inhibit the metabolism of drugs like theophylline, cisapride, and can cause their levels to go high, and this can lead to the toxicity of these drugs like theophylline and cisapride. So remember the term, it is a microsomal enzyme inhibitor, and thus it can lead to toxicity of other drugs whose metabolism it is inhibiting. Now the erythromycin uses. So the uses are directly translated from the spectrum. Okay, so whichever bacteria we have studied in the spectrum, the same thing will be translated here as uses. So you can see we have seen there some bacteria. Based on that, we will just see the uses. So if you want, you can correlate the spectrum and the uses. Okay, so here I'll just mention the uses: streptococcal pharyngitis and tonsillitis, community acquired pneumonia, which is caused by pneumococci and H. influenza, diphtheria, tetanus, syphilis, gonorrhea, leptospirosis. So you remember all these bacteria we have, which cause diseases have been mentioned in the spectrum, like Clostridium tetani we have discussed. Mentioned. Then we have leptospira we have mentioned, Neisseria gonorrhea we have mentioned. So you can actually translate the spectrum as the uses. Then you will see atypical pneumonia, other additional spectrum we had studied. That is the uses here. Atypical pneumonia caused by Mycoplasma pneumonia organism, whooping cough, which is caused by Bacillus pertussis, chancroid, which is caused by Haemophilus ducrei, Campylobacter enteritis, Legionnaires pneumonia, Chlamydia trachomatis. So additional spectrum, whatever we have studied, the uses corresponding to that is there. So only you have to remember main the spectrum and you will get the uses automatically. Okay, so we have so far discussed the mechanism of action, then we have discussed the spectrum, the pharmacokinetics, the ADR, and the uses of erythromycin. Okay, now we'll go to the newer macrolides. So we'll see. So what are the advantages of newer macrolides over erythromycin? This is the first thing that we should know. So these macrolides, they have got a broader spectrum as compared to that of erythromycin. Means they have got some more action on some additional bacteria also. They are stable in gastric acid. I told you erythromycin was acid labile. These are stable in gastric acid. They have got a high oral bioavailability. They have got a longer T-half and they are tolerated better by the gastric route. Okay, I told you a lot of gastrointestinal problems occurs with erythromycin, which is comparatively less in this case. They also have a longer T-half. I told you erythromycin has got a very short T-half of 1.5 to 2 hours. Okay, so these are the advantages of newer macrolides over erythromycin. So we'll be principally discussing mainly two newer macrolides, that is clarithromycin and azithromycin, which are commonly used. So clarithromycin is an O-methyl derivative of erythromycin. It has got an additional spectrum other than what is there in erythromycin. It is having some additional spectrum, that is it is active against Mycobacterium avium complex, Mycobacterium leprae, and Helicobacter pylori. These are the three principal organisms against which this drug has got some additional action. It is acid stable and has got a good oral absorption, has got a greater tissue distribution, and it is excreted both by kidney and the liver. Okay, now the uses as such is there for URTI, LRT, all those that we discussed in the erythromycin. That is already there. Other than that, which one will you add here additionally is the Mycobacterium avium complex infection that is seen in AIDS patients, H. pylori infection, leprosy, atypical mycobacterial infection. So you can see here I had mentioned all these as the additional spectrum. That only you will mention here as the uses. Then the adverse drug reaction, it has got better gastric tolerance, but occasionally it can cause an adverse drug reaction, that is pseudomembranous enterocolitis. It is manifested by diarrhea and rarely it can cause rhabdomyolysis. So these two adverse drug reactions can occur, but it is not that frequent. It is occurring only rarely. Otherwise it has got a good gastric tolerance. Next, we come to azithromycin. This is very important because all of you would have at times seen this drug. Okay, at least you would have either taken this drug, I mean, for your infections, or would have seen somebody using this drug because it's very, very common and very popularly used drug. This is an azolite congener of erythromycin, and it has got an additional antibacterial spectrum over Mycoplasma, H. influenza, Legionella, Chlamydia, Moraxella. Okay, all these things you have seen in erythromycin also, but this drug has got an additional, or I mean higher activity as compared to erythromycin. This has got a higher activity over these bacteria. It is also acid stable. It has got rapid oral absorption from the empty stomach. So that is what you have to remember. It has got a rapid oral absorption from empty stomach. So it is always given 1 hour before food or after 2 hours after food. Okay, because the absorption is better from an empty stomach. It has got large tissue distribution and an excretion is mainly in bile. Observe the long T half, almost 50 hours. It's very long T half, and you have to only give once daily dosing as compared to erythromycin. Erythromycin, you give 4 doses. Here you are giving only 1 dose, 500 milligram daily once. That is the way you are giving azithromycin. Now it is given for all these conditions like tonsillitis, pharyngitis, sinusitis, pneumonia, skin and soft tissue infections, MAC and all. But it is particularly important in Legionnaires pneumonia, Chlamydia trachomatis, Chlamydia pneumonia, and sexually transmitted diseases. Sexually transmitted diseases is one of the very important drugs. So you can see it is useful in, I have given you some examples of STDs, that is lymphogranuloma venereum, tonovenosis, chancroid, and urethritis. All these are sexually transmitted diseases where azithromycin is very, very useful. Even a single dose will be very curative in such cases. So it finds a very important role in sexually transmitted diseases. So azithromycin also you can remember as a short note. So if you have to write a short note on azithromycin, what will you write? It's an acylide congener of erythromycin. Then you will write the mechanism of action, which is common to all the macrolides. Then you will write the antimicrobial spectrum on which it is having a higher activity. Then you mention the pharmacokinetics. Then you mention the uses and adverse drug reaction. It is not having any significant adverse drug reactions or drug interaction. This is the way you have to write if a short note on azithromycin. Okay, so with that, we finish the macrolide antibiotics. Now we go on to the next category, that is aminoglycoside antibiotics. So first only, we shall be looking at the classification. So before that, as we mentioned the chemical structure of macrolides, let us mention the chemical structure of aminoglycosides also. So it contains 2 or more amino sugars attached by glycosidic linkage. 2 or more amino sugars attached by glycosidic linkage. It is classified into 2 groups: the drugs which are used for systemic use and the ones which are given for topical use. Under the systemic drugs or the systemic aminoglycosides, you have examples of streptomycin, gentamicin, kanamycin, amikacin, cisomycin, tobramycin, etyl and so on. Under the topical ones, you are having examples of neomycin, framicidin. Okay, so we shall be discussing the characteristic of the complete group, that is aminoglycosides characteristics as a whole, and then we shall just look into some individual drugs very briefly. Okay, so first we will look at the mechanism of action. So these drugs are bactericidal. That's the first thing you have to remember. They are bactericidal. They penetrate the bacterial cell wall and reach the periplasmic space through the porin channels. Okay, just imagine how a bacterial cell would be. So they penetrate the bacterial cell wall and reach the periplasmic space through the porin channels. Then they are transported across the cytoplasmic membrane by active transport. Inside the bacterial cell, they bind to the 30S ribosomal subunits and interfere with the following steps of protein synthesis. So I told you in the macrolides that they interfere with the translocation step of protein synthesis. On the other hand, these drugs, that is aminoglycosides, they interfere with more than one step of protein synthesis. They interfere with the formation of the initiation complex, that is the first step of protein synthesis. They also inhibit the formation of polysomes. Okay, that elongation process involves the formation of polysomes. That also is inhibited, and also they cause misreading of the genetic code on the mRNA. They also cause the misreading on the genetic code on mRNA. So in these 3 ways, they inhibit the protein synthesis of the bacteria and make them, and hence they are bactericidal. The spectrum includes gram-negative aerobic bacilli. So they are mainly active on the gram-negative aerobic bacilli. You can quote some examples like Proteus, Pseudomonas, E. coli, Enterobacter, Klebsiella, Shigella, and so on. and a few gram-positive bacteria like staph and streptococci. Okay, so mainly this is acting on the gram-negative. So macrolides, when we were studying, they were acting mainly on the gram-positive. Here, aminoglycosides, they are acting mainly on the gram-negative. So at least the broader spectrum you should know whether it is acting on the gram-positive or the gram-negative. And the individual bacteria you should be aware. Okay, so it is better that before you go on to any of these topics, you make a you study the examples of gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria, and then only it will become easier for you. Otherwise, when I say about all these different bacteria, it might confuse you. So here you study the broad spectrum, that is, it is mainly active against the gram-negative bacteria. And if you know the examples of gram-negative bacteria, you can easily put in those here as examples. That is the way it becomes easier for you. Okay, so we'll see the pharmacokinetics. Here, they are very polar basic drugs. Polar basic drugs. So they will not be absorbed by the oral route. They are all administered either parenterally or by the local route, as by topical administration as ointments. So you see that there is no oral route as such, because the oral absorption is poor. They are poorly distributed, they do not undergo metabolism, and they are almost excreted unchanged in the urine. And you have to be very careful to make dose adjustments in the renal insufficiency. You have seen that it is excreted almost unchanged in the urine. So in a patient who is having a renal insufficiency, he will not be able to excrete this drug in the proper way, and may end up with toxicity. So in such patients, you have to reduce the dose of these aminoglycoside drugs. Now we'll see the toxicity or the ADR. So they all have these toxicities. They are all ototoxic. That means they can damage the ear. They can either cause damage to the vestibular part of the ear, or they can cause a damage to the cochlear part of the ear. They are all can cause renal toxicity, and they can also cause neuromuscular blockade and can cause skeletal muscle relaxation. So ototoxicity, nephrotoxicity, and neuromuscular blockade. These are the three ADRs or toxicities of all the aminoglycoside drugs. And in different drugs, there will be different proportion of these toxicity, but they are all having this three toxicity. They are contraindicated in pregnancy. They should not be given along with other ototoxic drugs, nephrotoxic drugs, and muscle relaxants. They should be avoided in elderly patients, and also should be contraindicated in patients who are having kidney disease. Now we'll see the uses. So the uses include, I told you, they are active against gram-negative bacilli mainly. So they are involved in the use in conditions like UTI, pneumonia, meningitis, septicemia, pelvic and abdominal sepsis, which are caused by gram-negative organisms. They can also be given in conditions like bacterial endocarditis, tuberculosis, tularemia, plague, brucellosis by the systemic route, that is by the parenteral route. Topically, they are used for infections of conjunctiva or external ear as ointments or drops. And they are also used for sterilizing the bowel of patients before surgery and in hepatic coma patients. Sterilizing the bowel means killing all the microorganisms present in the bowel. Okay, now this is done by giving drugs, neomycin, which is a topical drug. So it is given orally only in this case. But what happens is that when you give it orally, it will not be absorbed. I told you all the aminoglycosides, they have got a poor oral absorption, so it will not be absorbed. So it will only act on the GI mucosa and kill all the organisms present there. So it is used for that local sterilizing action in patients before surgery, to clear the gut of all the microorganisms before a patient is taken up for a surgery. And also in hepatic coma patients, it is used to reduce the number of ammonia producing organisms. So we'll just look into some of the individual drugs very briefly. So streptomycin, it is obtained from Streptomyces griseus. As a single drug, it is not very popular. It is usually used in combination with other drugs in conditions like plague, tularemia, brucellosis, bacterial endocarditis, and tuberculosis. Now, gentamicin is obtained from Micromonospora purpurea. It is one of the most commonly used aminoglycosides. So you have to remember this drug very mainly because it is one of the most commonly used aminoglycoside. As compared to streptomycin, it is more potent. It is having a less cost. It is more reliable for use, and there has been a very long experience with its use. So people know this drug very well because they have used it for a long time. But it is more nephrotoxic as compared to streptomycin. That is the main problem. It is more nephrotoxic. Otherwise, it is more potent. It has got a low cost. It is more reliable and all, but it is more nephrotoxic. So we'll keep it resorted for using in gram-negative bacillary infection like UTI, pneumonia, meningitis, bacterial endocarditis, tuberculosis, tularemia, plague, brucellosis. This is a repetition of what I have told you as a common uses of the aminoglycosides. Same thing, all are applicable to almost everything is applicable for as a use of gentamicin. Amikacin, this drug has got the widest spectrum of activity, and it is also resistant to aminoglycoside inactivating enzymes which can be produced by bacteria. Certain bacteria can inactivate aminoglycosides by producing enzymes. Now this drug is resistant to those enzymes. It is usually kept as a reserve drug for hospital-acquired gram-negative bacillary infection and for multi-drug resistant TB. So it is not really used as frequently. We have kept it as a reserve drug, okay, for infections which are not responding to others, and also for multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Then the two drugs which are given topically are neomycin and famotidine. Topically, I told you, it is used for skin, eye, external eye, ear infection in the form of ointments and drops and all, and also powders. And orally, as I told you earlier, it is given for sterilization of the bowel before surgery, and also to kill the ammonia forming bacteria in the gut in the case of hepatic coma. It is given here orally, but it is acting only on the GI mucosa. It is not getting absorbed. That is why it has not got any systemic action. So even though it is given orally, it is a topical action on the GI mucosa. Okay, and the other drug is famotidine. It is very similar to neomycin. It is too toxic for systemic. It is too toxic for systemic administration. It is used topically on skin, eye, and ear. Okay, so with that, we have finished the aminoglycosides, and these are the important questions. List examples of macrolides. Erythromycin, you will learn the mechanism of action, spectrum, uses, ADR. Newer macrolides, you have to mainly concentrate on clarithromycin and azithromycin. Classify aminoglycosides, and aminoglycosides mechanism of action, spectrum, uses, ADR, you will prepare as a short note or an essay, and gentamicin as a short note. So whenever you're writing a gentamicin, you have to write mechanism of action also, then spectrum and all. Okay, that what I usually see in the class notes is that when you are just asked to write gentamicin, you forget about the common things about mechanism of action, and you just end up writing what I have showed you in the two slides. So whenever these additional drugs, whenever you're writing a short note, you should start from the beginning. That is, you should mention it is an aminoglycoside, the mechanism of action is bactericidal, it is having it inhibits the protein synthesis, and you should explain the steps of protein synthesis. Then you should say the spectrum, and then you should say about the adverse drug reactions which I have discussed in common with the aminoglycosides, and then you should come to the uses. So most of the students, they end up writing only 2 slides which we show individually for that particular drug. They forget about the common aspects that they could have written in the short note. So this, I think, you should be more careful when you write the short note. So very intelligently you have to use these informations to write your short notes. Okay, so thank you. If you have any doubts, we shall be clarifying that in the Zoom session as well as during the your personal private discussions. Thank you.